11 days after my hip replacement, I came home and found a laminated sheet taped to my refrigerator. At the top, in bold letters, it said House Rules 4 EVELYNS Recovery. Rule 4 said no visitors without Brooke's permission. Rule 11 said the kitchen closed at 7. Rule 19 said all financial mail had to be opened with my son present. My car keys were locked inside a desk drawer, my bedroom had been emptied, and my daughter-in-law had moved my clothes into the downstairs guest room. The next morning, my visiting nurse read the list twice and said, "Mrs. Carter, none of these restrictions are in your discharge plan." Then she looked toward the hallway and asked my son and his wife to leave the room. My name is Evelyn Carter. I was 67 years old, widowed, and recently retired after 34 years as a high school principal. I had spent most of my career explaining to teenagers that rules only worked when they had a legitimate purpose, and someone had the authority to make them. I never imagined I would need to explain the same thing to my own son inside the house I had paid off 14 years earlier. My son Daniel was 39. His wife, Brooke, was 37. When my surgeon scheduled the hip replacement, Daniel offered to move in for 6 weeks while I recovered. At first, I resisted. I had already arranged grocery deliveries, physical therapy, and a visiting nurse, but Daniel insisted. "You took care of me my whole life," he said. "Let me do this for you." Brooke promised she would handle meals and medication reminders. They sounded sincere, and I wanted to believe accepting help did not mean surrendering independence. The first week after surgery, they were helpful. Daniel drove me to appointments, and Brooke prepared meals and organized my medication. I thanked them constantly because I believed they had rearranged their lives for me. The changes began while I was still at the rehabilitation center. Brooke called and said they had moved me into the downstairs guest room because the stairs were unsafe. I told her the physical therapist had already cleared me to use the stairs with a rail. She replied, "We're not taking chances." When I came home, my bed, reading chair, clothes, and framed photographs had all been removed from the master bedroom. Daniel and Brooke were sleeping there. "We needed to be close to the bathroom," Brooke explained. "So do I said. Daniel laughed lightly. "It's temporary, Mom." Temporary became their answer to everything. My neighbor Linda came to visit 2 days later with flowers and a casserole. Brooke met her at the door and told her I was sleeping. I was sitting 10 feet away in the living room. When I called out, Brooke closed the front door and said, "You need rest more than company." That evening, I found the first version of the rules on the refrigerator. There were 12 then. By the end of the week, there were 27. No visitors without approval. No cooking after 7. No walking outside without supervision. No driving until Daniel agreed. All financial mail had to go into a blue tray, and Brooke would answer the house phone because stressful calls could affect recovery. At first, I argued about each rule individually. Brooke answered every objection with the same calm smile. "This is about safety," Daniel would add. "Please don't make everything a power struggle." One night at 8:10, I walked into my own kitchen to make tea. Brooke was turning off the lights. "The kitchen is closed," she said. "I live here. And your body needs a schedule." I reached for the kettle. She placed her hand over it. "The schedule only works if you cooperate." Daniel entered while we were standing there. I expected him to tell his wife to move her hand. Instead, he said, "Mom, it's just tea. You can have it in the morning." That was the moment the situation stopped feeling overprotective and started feeling deliberate. The next morning, my visiting nurse, Carla, arrived for a scheduled assessment. Brooke followed us into the bedroom and answered questions before I could. When Carla asked how I was managing medication, Brooke said, "She gets confused with the timing." I turned toward her. "I have never missed a dose." Brooke gave a sympathetic smile. "She doesn't remember when she forgets." Carla studied both of us. Then she noticed the laminated rules on the refrigerator. She read them quietly, brought the sheet into my room, and asked Daniel and Brooke to wait outside. "Did your doctor order any of this?" she asked. "No." "Have you been diagnosed with memory impairment?" "No." "Do you feel safe making decisions in your own home?" The question embarrassed me. I had led schools through emergencies, yet I was sitting in a guest room while someone else controlled my keys. I feel physically safe, I said. I do not feel like the decisions are mine anymore. Carla opened my discharge plan. I was cleared to manage my medication, receive visitors, and take short supervised walks. Driving required a later assessment, but Daniel had no authority to ban it permanently. Carla said, "Help should increase your independence. It should not make you smaller." After she left, I stopped arguing and started documenting. I photographed the rule sheet. My doorbell camera had recorded Brooke telling Linda, "Evelyn gets confused after lunch." My bank then confirmed 3 $900 transfers labeled care contribution to Daniel's account. He had temporary bill pay access because I had trusted him during surgery. When I asked about the transfers, he said, "We gave up our apartment to be here. You told me you were staying for 6 weeks. Our landlord raised the rent," Brooke said. "We had to make decisions." The truth came from papers beside my printer. Brooke had contacted a contractor about converting my bedroom into an office and future nursery. Another document showed that she and Daniel had sublet their apartment for 12 months. They had not moved in temporarily. The final proof was a text message from Brooke that appeared on the family tablet because her account was still connected. She had written to Daniel, "Once she gets used to downstairs, she'll stop fighting us. We just have to stay consistent." I read the message twice. My recovery was not something they planned to support. It was something they planned to extend. I called my attorney, changed my banking permissions, and arranged a family care meeting with Carla, my accountant, and Linda. Daniel seemed pleased. "Maybe everyone can help you understand why structure matters," he said. On Saturday, Brooke placed the laminated rules at the center of the dining table as though they were evidence of responsible caregiving. I placed my actual discharge plan beside them. Carla reviewed the medical instructions and explained that none of Brooke's restrictions had been ordered. My accountant produced the unauthorized transfers. Linda played the doorbell recording from her phone. Then I placed the apartment sublease, contractor email, and Brooke's message on the table. Daniel's face changed first. Brooke folded her arms. "Everything we did was to keep you safe. You moved me out of my bedroom. Because of the stairs. You rented out your apartment for a year. We needed stability. You transferred money from my account. For groceries, transportation, and care. You did not ask. You would have said no." The room became quiet. I removed the laminated sheet from the table and held it up. "I spent 34 years teaching children that rules require legitimate authority," I said. "You had none." Daniel leaned forward. "Mom, we thought you needed us." "I needed help getting through surgery. You needed me to believe I could not live without you." He looked toward the papers. "We can fix this." "We are going to fix it. Your access to my accounts has already been revoked. The money will be returned by Friday. The contractor has been told not to enter my property. You have 14 days to move out." Brooke stared at me. "You're throwing out the people who cared for you." "You did not move in to care for me. You used my recovery to replace me." Daniel's voice dropped. "Where are we supposed to go?" That is a question adults answer before subletting their home. I did not call the police or humiliate them publicly. I gave them written notice, hired a professional aide for the rest of my recovery, and refused to negotiate the deadline. The night before they left, Daniel stood in the kitchen while I made tea at 8:15. "I should have stopped it," he said. "Yes. I thought Brooke was being organized. You watched her take my keys." He looked down. "I told myself you were difficult because that was easier than admitting we benefited from controlling you." That was the first honest thing he had said. "I love you," I told him, "but love is not the same as trust. Trust comes back through behavior." He nodded. There was no dramatic hug. Some relationships need space before they can heal. 6 weeks later, my therapist cleared me to walk independently and drive short distances. I moved back into my bedroom and taped my physical therapy completion certificate, where Brooke's rules had hung. That evening, I invited Linda and 3 women from my garden club for dinner. At 8:15, I carried a pot of tea into the kitchen. The front door was unlocked. People were laughing in the living room. No one asked permission to visit me. Daniel began returning the money in installments. He called every Sunday, but he stopped telling me what I should do. Brooke did not come with him. I did not know whether our relationship would recover, and I refused to pretend that uncertainty was cruelty. My son thought surgery had made me powerless. What he learned was that needing someone beside me did not give them the right to stand above me. Accepting care did not make me a child, and recovering in my own home did not make that home theirs. And if you think family can only take control through rules, watch the next story about the daughter who discovered her parents had promised her house to someone else while she was still paying the mortgage.